1993 brought us one of the sickest practical effects ever in the form of the one and only Jurassic Park movie. It's the absolute best to see a childhood classic age so well, right? For all the people out there wondering just how they managed to make the dinosaurs look so real, wait no longer. In this video, we'll be breaking down the stories behind the movie's T-Rex animatronic. Let's get into it. First off, how it was made. It's absolutely crazy how they pulled this off, you guys. Okay, so we all know the T-Rex scene that was one of the most iconic scenes, not only in the entire film, but in movie history in general. The adrenaline rush, man, that's something no one can forget. Just the fact that there was very little CGI involved is mind-boggling. Yep, it was all built by hand. Freddy Fazbear has nothing on how terrifying this animatronic is, that's for sure. So there actually were two of them. Stan Wilson Studios was in charge of building them and they did a terrific job. One of them was the full deal, a 37-foot long, fully functional dinosaur. The other was built from the torso up and they only used it for smaller movements and facial expressions. You know, more precision-based. This one scene took so much work that the last 3 weeks of production were spent just shooting it. The technicians first transported the 37-foot dino to Warner Bros. Studio without its outer skin. That was done to test out the hydraulics on stage. So yeah, Mr. T-Rex was essentially naked for a while. Then they enclosed the armature with foam rubber once everything was tried and tested. The crew literally stayed a whole night just gluing the foam on and assembling him. It was not easy. Oh no. It was a whole process, y'all. One of the crew members said that they had to sew it up from the inside too. Next, the trials and tribulations of testing it out. Honestly, it's giving Frankenstein vibes. The way the entire crew describes it, the animatronic was like a force of its own. Of course, you'd have to navigate a huge robot dinosaur very carefully. There was a lot going on inside it, and very often they had to work on it from the inside. Alan Scott, one of the artists, recalls a time when he almost got stuck inside. If there's anything scarier than being chased by a real mechanic dino, it's being in one. So there he was, gluing the foam and rubber from the inside. Then the power went out. Even in usual cases, this is a pretty annoying setback. Losing your progress, all of that. But over here, it was absolutely terrifying. Alan describes it as being surrounded in the dark by all these metal sheets and hydraulic cylinders. They were moving across each other, so he could have gotten really injured if he didn't move right. Someone shouted from the outside, "There's someone inside the T-Rex!" And he panicked, understandably so. Luckily, the big guy slowly stopped moving around. A few people from the outside pried the jaws open, and then Scott managed to get out of there unscathed. Phew. Thankfully, no one got as close to getting injured as he did. It was just a matter of staying still. Kinda like how you'd encounter one from the outside, actually. Now let's see how the animatronic spooked the crew. Aside from the peril of constructing it, having to look at a realistic, larger-than-life dinosaur every day definitely got to them. Who wouldn't be a little freaked out? The thing looks like it could come lunging at you any second. According to Winston, the danger was never far from anyone's mind. Before they brought it into the studio, they built it inside the workshop they had. It was a smaller space, and he describes it as being right next to this wall of flesh and machinery. Literally anywhere you turned, it was there. Not to mention that they had to coordinate the movements according to how an actual dinosaur behaves. Roaring, opening and closing its jaws, and so forth. Winston says that seeing it up close and personal had an effect on everyone there. Whenever it'd glitch, everyone would hold their breath. There was always the fear of something going wrong or water getting into the system. If that happened, they'd have a malfunctioning T-Rex on the loose. So yes, very much like the events of Jurassic Park itself, a real-life example of how art imitates life. Don't be too alarmed, folks. Keep in mind that they were all professionals working on set. When you get the science right, there's not a whole lot to worry about. And thankfully, no huge glitch happened when anyone's life was in danger. And now, how they worked with it in the rain. Remember how we said that they had to be careful with water? Yeah, that proved to be a little difficult. You know, because the entire main road sequence happened while it was raining cats and dogs, with a robot that weighs around 7.5 tons. You can bet that they had to be careful working around it. The latex skin around it was a lot of work. We're talking about installing it, painting it to look as real as possible. A drawback of the material was that it absorbed water really quickly, so naturally, water did get into the system. In between takes, the T-Rex would spring to life occasionally. Now we know this sounds like it started roaring and walking around, but no, not to worry. It just shook and quivered like it was cold, which is kinda cute actually, but it would jump scare the cast and crew from time to time. It did that because of the excess water weight. Despite all of that, the mechanics from the inside worked fine throughout the shoot. Also, about the second animatronic, now, this was only the first one. The other one they built was for the more precise scenes, like the ones where you see a close-up of the dinosaur's head or its jaws, basically any scene with just the torso. Plus, it'd be hard to calibrate a huge animatronic for more intense scenes. Say the one where it pushes itself through the bathroom hut wall? It took a very skilled team to put it all together since this was more detailed. The folds of the skin were nailed to a T along with the paint job. It could only perform a limited set of actions, but this was what they needed it for. Safe to say, mission accomplished. It also worked with something called action memory. It's a computer-based mechanism where you can program and reprogram its movements perfectly, to the point where you could get it to repeat the same thing and it'd go exactly as planned. That's actually how the bathroom sequence went down without hurting Donald Gennaro, played by Martin Ferrero, while he was in there. And even the sound design. You gotta have a killer sound system for this kind of thing. Spielberg wanted to represent the creature as accurately as possible. In fact, he didn't want to approach it as another monster movie. He emphasized very clearly that they were animals with instincts, not vicious beasts out to do harm. For that, he set Gary Ridestorm to the task of finding as many original animal sounds and mixing them together. He and the crew ended up using samples from baby elephants, alligators, lions, and even whales. On top of that, they even sampled the bark of Gary's pet dog, Buster. Isn't that the cutest thing? To get that perfect bone-chilling roar, they mixed all these sounds together. The bass was of an elephant trumpeting. For the rumbles and growls, they mostly used alligator and lion recordings. You would have never guessed this all came from so many animals. They were so specifically designed with this. That scene where the animatronic shook Gallimimus was actually the sound of Buster playing tug-of-war with a rope. Next time your doggy friend's up to his antics, pay attention to how he sounds just like the T-Rex from Jurassic Park. Ha! Finally, how they took care of the big guy. Just because it was a robot didn't mean they didn't have to take care of it, not like you would a pet, but more like keeping it intact and safe. After each shoot, the crew had to leave fans all around the stage so that the water would dry. Even though this seemed a little pointless, they had to do it anyway. Because eventually it was going to get drenched the next day, and they had to work around this limitation. They all even had to cut takes a little short so they could dry off the skin with towels. When you put so much blood, sweat, and tears into the making of this dinosaur, of course, you'd want it to perform the best. In between all the hot and cold, wet and dry, they even had to weigh in to see how much water was absorbing on a daily basis. While everyone did a fantastic job, there was an emergency situation where the bottom jaw stopped working. It took Sam Wilson around 4 days to get it up and running again. Through so much difficulty, they created one of the realest animatronics in movie history. Not many people can do that. Well, that's it for this video. What did you think of the story behind the T-Rex animatronic? Let us know in the comments below. Be sure to leave a like and subscribe to our channel for more content like this. Thanks for watching.